Despite being one of the most connected generations of all time, historically and evolutionary, we seem to be the most loneliest and most depressed and anxiety-ridden generation at an all-time high, isn't it? Isn't that bit of an irony that we go through? So that's going to be the topic of today. I didn't really plan on it, but I think I'll just give you a brief of why I'm doing this. So the last couple of days, I've been thinking about some of the incidences, some of the discussions I've had with, let's say, friends, acquaintances. Some of it shaped my thinking into doing this podcast on about loneliness that's afflicting people of this generation, particularly maybe in the last 10 years, right? Um, so what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about loneliness. What's the issue that happens because of that? Is it really an epidemic? What kind of let's say downsides are, as you know, if you're a very lonely person, and what's the paradox of the social networks, the evolutionary lens a little bit, some research papers on loneliness and let's say lifespan related studies and quality of life studies, some practical solutions that hopefully gives some hope to people who want to change the narrative, some call to actions and some personal anecdotes from my own life and the instances of the last 1 week. So let's get to it, right? So as I said, even I think a couple of years back, it was US Surgeon General Vivek Murthy who said, who called loneliness as the next epidemic that's waiting to explode, and probably it's already there. But I think he was just cautioning the entire world that it's a very serious issue that can't be brushed under the carpet anymore. And he equated that to, I think, obesity, tobacco, and substance abuse. So I'll just read out what he said. He's declared loneliness a serious public health issue comparable to risks posed by tobacco, obesity, and substance abuse. The official advisory calls for treating social disconnection with the same urgency as these long-standing epidemics. So it's that serious. So basically, he said public health priority, loneliness is a major health threat. The scope of the problem, right? I mean, of course, when you want to treat something as an epidemic, you want to see how many people it's affecting. Affects half of the adults, especially youth. That's pretty damning. Health consequences, premature death, mental and physical illness, role of social media, superficial connections and increased isolation. Solutions, nurturing relationship, service, and community. Message from Murthy, connection is vital, like hunger or thirst. I mean, this is, I think, pretty powerful. I think particularly the last line. Connection is vital like water, right? Like, hunger and thirsty gives more importance to social connections, and rightly so. We're going to look a little bit deeper into that. WHO, in fact, calls loneliness a global public health issue as well, just like Muthia said. So let's go a little deeper and look at what loneliness actually is and how humans evolved around socializing and stuffs related to that, shall we? So, what is loneliness? It is just not being alone. It's the gap between the social connections you want versus what you actually have. So that is how ChatGPT is defining it, which looks pretty interesting. In the sense that I'm kind of thinking all of us want good, great, deep, maybe emotional, social connections, right? It could be with your family or it could be with your friends or lover, whosoever you wanted to be with. That is what we want. That is what everybody wants, but that is not something most people have, right? That seems to be the global epidemic that's causing a lot of issues. Chronic loneliness increases risk of heart disease, dementia, and early death. As bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Yeah, you might as well smoke and die faster. That's I'm not recommending that, guys. That's just a joke. Point number three is paradox of social networks. Designed to keep us connected, but algorithms push us towards comparison, envy, and shallow interactions. Likes, shares, and followers give dopamine spikes. That's true. But rarely the oxytocin and serotonin of real human bonding. Guys, this is pretty straightforward, right? That's not a tirade against or a rant against social networks, just like everything else in life. Like a curate said, there are positives to it, there are negatives to it. So social media has its own positives. It depends on how you intend to use it for communication or for knowledge purposes. But that's not really a platform where you can make true meaningful relationships or uh, social connections, right? It was probably intended to do that, but it hasn't really served the purpose with which it was probably created. I think that's my personal take on it, um, which I think is kind of I think it's kind of falling through the cracks of late. I think people are increasingly staying away from social media. I know that Instagram is more popular compared to Facebook due to current generation liking the video or picture-based communication. But yeah, I think overall people are a little disillusioned by the fake narratives of online dating and all this online social connections, which is slightly full of fakery, and people are kind of realizing that, which is adding to even more frustration, right? It was designed to solve the probably connect people better and strengthen the existing connections that people have, but apparently it's driving people the opposite way. But I have nothing against social media. Whoever wants to use it, it's up to you. I think the evolutionary lens is very important. I think people, if you actually give a little bit of thought to what I do in most videos that I do or talks I do, I try and relate everything to the evolutionary lens. This is something I deeply believe in because we haven't really changed much from 200,000 years ago or more of our existence. So that's a strong belief. Our brain is the same. It hasn't really adapted to the way we live. So a lot of things that we do today and the way we react, everything is has to be looked at from a evolutionary lens as well, not just the circumstances and the context around you. So humans in general are very tribal animals, just like the lions that live together or in a pack of hyenas. We Our survival, in fact, depended was extremely tied to a small tight knit groups, right? 20 to 30 people. I think that's what they called as a tribe, maybe 30, 40 people, small villages, and people lived in caves and stuff. So that is how we lived, and that is how we formed social bonding. And it's just the way it is, right? And you essentially, just like thirst and hunger, this is something that we actually yearn for. Yearn mean YEARN. I hope the pronunciation is right. That's what we want. So there's online thousands of friends, 10 thousands of followers. They don't mean much. In fact, your brain is actually confused. He's supposed to be making friends, meeting people in person, hugging and having that physical contact, your five senses of touch, seeing, smell, everything, all of that is completely missing, and you just see some fake friends and their fake photographs online. That's not really quality networking or friendship in general, right? uh, so let's look at a little bit of research around this. Couple of quick topics I'll cover. Harvard study of adult development, 80 plus years of ongoing study, which is pretty interesting, right? I think they call these as longitudinal studies, following people for a very long time to see how it pans out. Is the strongest predictor of happiness and longevity in quality relationship. Very interesting because it's easily understandable. So generally, I talk about three pillars of to good health, right, or a good life. When I say or a wellness is sleep, a good diet, and exercise. Of course, these three are very, very pivotal. And if you have to look at one of the strongest, let's say fourth pillar, if you say, I would actually put social connection along with, fifth can be stress management. But one of the strongest predictor of wellness and a long, good life is also how good social connections, relationships, or quality relations you have, as is probably the fourth pillar. And so I completely agree with it. There's another study by UCLA which says loneliness triggers same brain pathways as physical pain. Wow. Okay, that ouch, that really hurts, right? Gen Z report the highest loneliness levels despite being digitally native. Okay, we know that as well. Cool. So I think this thing we've laid the foundation pretty clearly. I also think people can relate to it very strongly, and I'll tell you why, right? I want good social connections. I love deep emotional connections, good discussions with people that I care for, and or with people who care for me, right? That's pretty clear. And I'm sure pretty much everyone here, man, woman, wants the same. If you don't want, you probably are a very different person. I don't understand that. But this is what most people actually want. Something very simple, right? Can I trust this person? Am I emotionally able to connect with someone? Is there a synchronicity that's working out? Bunch of factors that people used to judge. uh, that's how people form friendship, right? Not everyone will like me, and that's perfectly fine with me, right? That's okay. Now, with this being the condition, when I spoke to a lot of my friends, some of them are in US, some of them are in India, but I do have regular chats around this. In mid 40s, this is becomes a very common topic of discussion, and everyone says, hey, I mean, really want good connections. I'm trying hard at work and in my community, but it's kind of falling through. It's not working out for me, right? That's it's actually a bit surprising to hear that, but I'm happy at least they are making some new, fresh efforts to form good connections. And so me and a couple of other guys, I don't want to take any names, but two, three of them in the US, we are in regular touch every week. So we speak to each other maybe as good as I think 2 times a week. So I talk to these three guys almost every week. So that is like three, and then there's another guy in the UK that I talk to once in a month. Couple of other people in India that I talk to once in a month. So this is something that we consciously make effort. I just pick up the phone, call and speak to them. And they do the same thing. I know when reciprocity. There's another guy in Europe that I speak to regularly. This guy, and so bunch of different discussions. Of course, it's not restricted to guys. I also speak to some other people too. Yeah, interesting. Great. I think one of the things I think people have to look for is you have to look for quality over quantity. I think very few good deep connections that you have, and even 10 minutes of a good emotional discussion, the kind of high it gives you, I can't explain. You have to go through that. It's really, really good for you, and it's a deep, great buffer against loneliness. You have to do that. This is irrespective of your single, married, etc. Right? Social media, use it as a tool. Okay, it can't really be a crutch. Just use it for time pass and to stay connected or share some updates. It doesn't mean much according to me. Yeah, that's fine. Of course, if you live in a big community, there's a lot of other options for you to meet people. Sports, volunteering, community initiatives, neighborhood activities, gardening, bunch of other things. Biking, book clubs, reading clubs. So it's a lot of ways you can actually interact with people. In fact, when I said at the start of the podcast that I've had such good interactions this week, and that kind of gave me a let's say the incentive to do this podcast was the way I was feeling quite positive the entire week because of the kind of wonderful, beautiful conversations I had with a lot of people this week. That's the only difference. Otherwise, my life is the same. I wake up, I go to work, I do my exercise, I come back. So the routine has been the same. What changed this week, or was the additional conversations that I had with regular friends and also with the acquaintances that I speak to once in a while. It was very fascinating. Great. I think I also want to speak about what Professor Scott Galloway says. I mean, we're talking about call to actions and ways to network with people, right? Even if you're a very introvertish sort of a person. I think I remember I watched one of his videos where he says, one of the things that is loved by a lot of people is kindness, right? Man, woman, he just says be kind. And he, in fact, regrets having been not very kind to some of his employees when he was a young aggressive, let's say, manager or a boss at some stage. I think that's what he mentioned. I don't remember with whom the interview was. Maybe it was in dairy of a CEO with Steve, what is his name, Steve Bartlett or something. Yeah, I think that is what I remember. So Scott Galloway basically says you don't necessarily have to look at deep emotional connections with people all the time, though that is essential. He says do this, the lightweight conversations and the typical, high by kind of stuff that with anyone that you come across. It could be the person who issues your bus ticket, to being nice to someone that you meet in the gym, saying good morning, exchanging high buys or high fives or pleasantries with people that you come across on a daily basis, apart from your regular co-workers. And he says that it's more about the frequency and consistency and authenticity here, which means you really want to do it, right? You just don't fake it, and a lot of people do that, right? In the gym, it's fake, right? So people do that so that they think the other person feels bad. They do that by doing this, the other person actually feels a little weird. I mean, you might as well not do that fake smile. So frequency, consistency, and authenticity, I think, is the key. That's very important. Even if you think the other person is stupid, is not. People can figure out what is fakery and what is authentic, right? I think this, smiles and eye contacts and name. I think I'll admit, right? Even I've been guilty of not doing that in the gym for a long time. I know my behavior, and that's partly because even I had a lot of negative experiences with some relationships that I decided to go into a shell and stopped interacting with people. Apart from the ones that I was very sure of, which is some of the college friends that I speak to on a very regular basis. I hardly speak to other people even now. It's at workplace. It is just to the point, to the work, nothing more, nothing less. And it's the same way even in the community that I live. I hardly go a little deeper or below the surface level. With the very few people that I've established trust, yes, I go a little deeper, and those people are special to me, and I think I'm also special to them, which is why we are able to exchange uh, those beautiful moments with each other, right? Whether it's over phone or in person. So this is something Scott Galloway also says. So you could be standing in a theater to buy tickets, say hi to the person in front of you or behind, or in the grocery store, right? Or just try and talk to more people. You never know how things pan out. And some of apart from the college relationship that extended for me for a long time, some of the new relationship that really blossomed or is blossoming into something more wonderful with some of the people is because of such overtures that I actually made. I made efforts over the last 2 3 years to really reach out to people that maybe subconsciously or intuitively I felt I could get along with them, right? You like some people for some reason. There's no, you can't really find a real meaning or a reason behind it, but some people you look, you feel like, oh, I like him or I like her, I want to talk to him or her, right? You start feeling that and then you make attempts. You will fail most of the time. With some it may succeed, and these the ones that succeeded for me in the last couple of years are the ones I'm talking about, that you have to make effort rather than thinking that, oh, world is conspiring against you. That's a defeatist way of thinking, right? This is something that I've heard from a lot of my friends. No, P3, it's not, sorry, that's not really working out. People are so fake. Everyone is kind of not putting the authentic side of themselves. But the fact is, you're already kind of have this premonition and belief that the other person is always going to put out his faker side or the non-authentic, inauthentic side. So your guard is already up, and then you are starting to present your fakery side, right? So then it's not going to set yourself for a great relationship in the long run either which way. So the attempts will are supposed to fail. You have to be a little authentic to try. If it fails, it fails. It's okay, right? Just move on to the next one, but don't stop trying is what I'm just trying to say. So I also wanted to share some interesting angle which I want to speak about. So in my wing, the college friends of 1996 to 2000, right? We have a WhatsApp group which was active for some time, inactive for some time, and then in the last couple of years, again, it's soared back to its life. Very active discussions, conversations, a lot of lot more messages than it used to be 6 months back or even a year back, right? So in the last 4 months, I launched a new initiative where, okay, I'll just to give. So birthdays are easily about, I think, 20, 17, 18 people in the group. And there's obviously, a birthday coming every month or three birthdays coming every 2 months roughly, right? So the typical birthday wishes were happy birthday, copy paste with that flower, a cake, and some stupid emoji that comes standard stuff. Everyone copy paste, that's supported. It it is it is so frustrating for me to it was so frustrating for me to watch repeatedly that I was thinking, how do I fix this? Because I wanted to fix, right? Because not all of them are attached to everyone in the wing, that's fair enough, but you don't have to be necessarily attached to everyone, right? It's not going to work out that way. Everyone knows it, but at least you're attached to some people in the group. And even if you're not attached to the other person, is there a more authentic way to wish? Of course there is, right? So I think 4 months back I said, going forward, for every birthday, I'm going to send a Google link or a Zoom link. We're going to find out when that person is free in the evening. I'm going to set up a call. This is the link. Who's over is free, join. There's no pressure, right? I think leading up to day before, which was my birthday, I think it was the sixth phone call, video call that we did. So it's 10 to 15 minutes of laughter riot with, the 5 6 people who potentially can join it. And this includes people from UK, Australia, New Zealand, some of us from India. Most of them, of course, are in the US in different time zones as well, East versus West time zones. And a lot of them have tried. And the beautiful thing is, what I've seen as a pattern is, out of these 5 6 phone calls that we've done so far, 4 to 5 people have become common. They are the common denominators in these 5 6 calls. So that tells me that these same people who are actually not in touch with any of us for a long time, right, are actively participating in wishing people now. Why? Right? They also want deep, meaningful connections. and they're probably finding it difficult to form it outside, or they just like being a part of this tribe, right? At least the pattern has changed. Now it's more of, instead of texting, people are doing more of a voice note, and then I do more of video notes these days. So whosoever wish me a couple of days back, I was just responding to them with video notes, not just voice note. Hey, thank you so much for the wish, etc. Right? It just made them smile. They could not maybe call me, that's fair enough, but at least if they could hear me and see me, that's at least a couple of senses getting activated and forming a deeper bond, hopefully. So this is something. And in general, I was telling you that this week I felt more positive. I think some of the reason was, I mentioned that a lot more people that I spoke to in general, not necessarily around the birthday stuff, but in general, I was speaking to some the same friends who are abroad, or are also in India. Some of them had some very deep, meaningful discussions with some of them this week, and beautiful discussions that made me feel good. And I was radiating more of that energy when I met other people here, when I was walking around or going in the gym. That people started approaching me and I was talking to them. It was very casual banters and discussions, a lot of fun. For example, there was a gym buddy of mine, she was going for a run, I went for a walk, and then she stopped and spoke to me, and then we walked 2 kilometers just talking about her life in Coimbatore, what she does for work, the Qualcomm life, and Delhi Marathon, for example. So these were just random occurrences that I didn't really plan for, but those are the ones that started sending positive vibes and signals around people around me and made me feel really good. So if you are the person who thinks the world is conspiring against you and you're not able to make good social connections, it's probably you also have to start making realistic efforts towards addressing the problem that you are a part of, right? Try that. Some of these tips and tricks that I mentioned might actually help you. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but doesn't mean you stop trying, because all of us want good social deep connections to live happily, right? If you like this video, forward to a friend who feels lonely. Just call him up today, right after this call, and say, I was just thinking of you. A lot of us think, right? We think of some friends, but we are thinking, let him reach out to me first. Let her reach out to me first. What will he think if I'm reaching out? I'm being needy, or what will she think if I reach out first? What will she'll think? I'll hit on her. Nobody cares a damn, man. We are nothing. We're just a speck in a millions of years of history. People don't remember you tomorrow if you die. I think we give ourselves too much importance than what we are worth for, right? So drop that ego, pick up the phone, speak to the friend that you want to. It can be anyone that you have in mind, and let me know how it went for you. Thank you. I'll see you next week with something even more interesting on health and wellness. Cheers.